Good morning, welcome to our lesson on Stalin. So I thought I'd get out a bit and bring you somewhere different for today's lesson. So I'm here at the Knavesmire, which is just by the race course. So if I point my camera over there, hopefully you can see the race course in the background. So what we're looking at today is we're looking at how Stalin got control of the Soviet Union, how he kept control of the Soviet Union, and why the people accepted his brutal regime. So the main feature today is really censorship, and we're going to be identifying 5 key features of this. So the first is the cult of personality, which we're going to look at in a minute. The second is socialist realism, so art, culture, books, film, that kind of thing. The third is school and the brainwashing of children through the education system in the Soviet Union. The fourth reason is the creation of a pro-Stalin version of history. And the final reason, which we're going to look at as well today, is censorship. So, Stalin. So what we're going to look at is the sort of leadership cult, the cult of personality that emerged around Stalin. That's the focus of this video. So around Stalin, there was constructed this cult. He was elevated into this almost godlike status in the Soviet Union. He was the big hero, the fatherly figure of the entire nation. And propaganda reinforced this message of Stalin, and censorship also meant that there could be no opposition to this view of Stalin which was put forward. So this view of Stalin was reinforced absolutely everywhere. It was in all aspects of Soviet life. We'd looked at this already. If you remember from our last lesson, there was the lady who threw a bar of soap onto a newspaper, and it just happened to land on a picture of Stalin. So she served 10 years in a gulag for that relatively minor indiscretion. This view of Stalin, like I say, it was reinforced by journalists, artists, filmmakers. Every aspect of Soviet life reinforced this view, this image of Stalin. Children were taught to love Stalin more than their own parents. And to denounce their parents if they said anything bad about Stalin. So the development of this cult around Stalin, it had 4 main themes. So the first of these was the development of this image of Stalin as a political genius. So propaganda reinforced this view of Stalin as Lenin's heir, which is completely untrue. You know, we've looked at Lenin's testament. Lenin didn't think particularly highly of Stalin at the time of his death. We know that Stalin had a relatively minor part to play in the October Revolution, but Soviet propaganda didn't look at this. They didn't look at facts. They created this myth, this image of Stalin as Lenin's heir. So the slogan in the Soviet Union was that Stalin is the Lenin of today, and Stalin encouraged this. We see it at Lenin's funeral. Stalin created Lenin as this sort of godlike figure, and then cultivated this image of himself as Lenin's heir. We see it at Lenin's funeral as he played sort of chief mourner, delivering his eulogy, tricking Trotsky into not going. So that's the first image of Stalin as the sort of political genius. The second is of Stalin as a great economic planner. So the 5-year plans had to be seen as a success to reinforce this image of Stalin as a great economic planner. He was the man who masterminded it. He was the man behind the 5-year plans. After World War II, this is afforded even greater significance, as Stalin claims that he saw the crisis coming, and it was those sacrifices that he oversaw and the Soviet people endured which led to those successes. So that's the second reason, Stalin as a great economic planner. The third reason the third way this was reinforced was that of Stalin as a man of the people. So he was built up into this religious type god-like figure. He was seen as a fatherly figure of the nation, and children are used frequently in the propaganda images which emerge in the Soviet Union at this time. From 1936, he was referred to as the father of the nation. There were constant stories in the Soviet press of him meeting ordinary people, despite the fact that these meetings were very, very rare. So that's the third reason. The fourth reason is of Stalin as a great military leader, the generalissimo of the Soviet Union. This has a certain amount of irony when you look at the purges of the Red Army, which meant that the Soviet Union were not fully ready when the Nazis invaded, and also the fact that he blew it a little bit when the Nazis did first invade, which we'll be looking at later in the course. That purge, of course, he removed 3 of 5 of the Soviet Union's 5 marshals. He removed 13 of the army's commanders, 13 of the 15 army commanders. The fact, though, was that he did blow it at the start of the war, but he did recover. The Soviet Union did recover, and he was able to use the Soviet Union's victory in World War II, the Great Patriotic War, as a for propaganda purposes. So those are the 4 ways in which the leadership cult, the cult of leadership, was created. I'll see you to discuss this a bit further in a couple of seconds.